The Puck Portfolio with Andy MacNeil.
Hey, welcome to the Buck Portfolio for Wednesday, May 29th. A little bit late getting started here because Jake got mad at his Ethernet cable apparently, and that caused a little bit of a delay, but that's okay. We're here, and I am joined by Nick Martin from the Action Network's Line Change podcast. Nick, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great. Pumped to be back.
Yeah. And of course, this show is presented by NorthStar Bets. You can check them out via the link in the description below if you are watching on the Canada Sports Betting YouTube channel. And if you are and you haven't subscribed, please do so right now. Drop a like on the video, helps out a ton. And share it on X because we are live on the Canada Sports Betting account, just the way Elon intended it. But anyways, we've got a big game tonight between the Edmonton Oilers and the Dallas Stars. Of course, Dallas took game 3 by a score of 5-3. Interesting stat from the NHL playoffs. 88% of the games now have been decided by 1 goal or 2 with the empty net. So a lot of close games in this series, and I would expect it to continue to be pretty tightly contested. Some lineup changes coming for the Edmonton Oilers. Looks like Warren Foegele, Sam Carrick, and Vincent Desharnais, they stayed on the ice after practice. So that would indicate that they are not going to be in the lineup tonight. Looks like Ryan McLeod will draw back in, as will veteran Corey Perry, and Philip Broberg expected to make his debut for the Oilers on the blue line. And some lineup changes for the Dallas Stars by the looks of things. Craig Smith coming out, Radek Faska making his way back into the lineup. I think that lineup change for the Stars is maybe more impactful for than all 3 of the lineup changes that the Edmonton Oilers are trying here. Nick, how do you see this game from a betting perspective? I talked about it a little bit yesterday, and I think it's Stars or nothing at this point.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the common contention for me. It feels like, overall on sides, this not just being a standalone Wednesday game that everyone obviously wants to, with all the attention. I don't think this is one where I'm making a case to bet aside. But I do think you have to lean with the Stars, given the shakiness from Skinner. It's been such a close series. I don't think the home and road splits mean anything to Dallas whatsoever. You can make a legitimate case they've been better on the road. So I think with that in mind, you're playing the Stars or nothing, but I don't necessarily love anything. It feels like we're getting to that tough point in the playoffs. The playoffs have been good so far to me, but I think this is a game where it feels like a bit of a reach to pick a side. I do think that the Oilers, obviously, I think this is a pretty common take. They needed to shake up the defense core, but I thought Desharnais had been way more close to passable than Ceci or Nurse.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any realistic world they were ever going to sit Nurse, given what he means to their team in the locker room. I know Ceci's big in the room there too, but you're not sitting a $9.5 million D-man. And I do think over the totality of the playoffs, he's clearly outplayed Ceci. So
it's so crazy that he makes $9.5 million. It's so crazy.
It's insane. But you're not sitting him, and I do think he's still better than Ceci. So I think the change should have been Broberg in for Ceci, or maybe 70. I think were the options. I don't think they're going to be any worse because of Broberg for Desharnais, but it feels like Desharnais's gotten exposed far less often than those other 2. So I think that it was just a thing. Knobloch didn't quite have the gusto to go ahead and tell one of those guys they were sitting in this huge spot, but I think that's probably what was best.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's pretty minor, but I do like the Foxa for Smith thing. I feel like, Smith was in there a little more to score and hasn't quite shown that upside. And Fox is a much better checker. So
Absolutely.
I think that's a solid move for Dallas.
Yeah, Fosca is a guy that can really, really hound you on the forecheck, on the back check, and I think that's going to really help the Stars, particularly in the neutral zone. I thought Edmonton's, for the most part, Edmonton's neutral zone play has been pretty good. It's when they enter the zone and they're not able to really get any sustained pressure. A lot of their passes are being broken up. Their shots aren't reaching the net. I mean, only 16 of the 52 shot attempts that the Oilers took at 5-on-5 made their way to the net and hit Jake Ottinger in game number 3. So they've got to do a better job getting creative in the offensive zone. It seems like too many one and dones where they enter the zone, they make one pass, it gets broken up, and it goes the other way. They haven't really been able to establish their cycle in this series yet so far. And I think a guy like Fasca will really help Dallas in the neutral zone. But you mentioned Desharnais and CC, and I totally agree with you. I think Desharnais has been, at times he's made some pretty big gaffes just based on the eye test, but overall he's been much better statistically, I think, than CC, who has been by far the worst Oilers defenseman. I mean, he's got a 33% expected goal share at 5-on-5 right now, which is far worse than any of the other defensemen. But speaking of Darnell Nurse, talked about it a little bit on yesterday's show, and of course some of this is bad luck. I mean, you can't look at save percentage and whatnot, and goals, shooting percentage, etc., and just hang it all on one player. But it does raise some alarm bells that the Oilers have been pretty good at 5-on-5 when Nurse hasn't been on the ice. But when he has been on the ice, they've been outscored. So Edmonton has outscored teams 27-16 during 5-on-5 play when Nurse isn't on the ice, but they've been outscored 18-8 when he is on the ice. So that is a pretty big swing. And I was of the opinion that they should try to split up the Bouchard-Ekholm pairing and maybe spread that around. I don't know if that's the right opinion, but I guess they aren't going to do that. But it's been an interesting series. I mean, both of these teams have seemingly taken turns annihilating each other from period to period, and it's been tough to hold momentum. I mean, you've seen the momentum kind of change with the lead. I think the Oilers have played well when it's been tied. They've played pretty aggressive when playing from behind, but when they've got the lead, man, it's been a big problem. Holding leads has been a challenge for this Oilers team really since the start of the second round, since game 1 versus Vancouver. 4 of the last 5 losses have come via blown leads. And that's a big problem for Edmonton. I mean, just the sheer amount of or the sheer lack of shot attempts and chances when during that second period when Dallas scored those 3 goals in 3 minutes and 33 seconds. I mean, it's just too much of a shift in favor of the Stars there when Edmonton is clearly not capable of holding a 2-goal lead with 40 minutes left to play. Right, it's just a bad strategy. You'd like to see more pushback from the Oilers, of course. The Stars kind of dictated that period. But the big thing that stands out to me is just how good both of these teams have been on the penalty kill. The Oilers' power play has not been able to be a factor in this series yet. We didn't really expect Dallas to really need their power play to surge in this series in order to win it, but you kind of need Edmonton to get some power play goals in order for them to emerge victorious in this one. And they've killed off all 5 of Edmonton's power plays so far through 3 games. So you mentioned that you're not looking to take a side in this one. And I'm kind of in agreement with that. I've got this one around a minus 110 projected odds in favor of the Edmonton Oilers. So, at plus 115, the current odds at NorthStar Bets, it's Dallas or nothing, like I said. I think there is a bit of a better price out there. If you shop around, it looks like the best price in market right now is plus 123 at that point. I guess I would take a shot on the Stars, but the value is minimal. So where are you looking at attacking this game from a betting perspective?
Yeah, I actually think my favorite play is Draisaitl to score, just keeping it nice and simple. I think plus 140 is still a touch long. We've seen his production in the playoffs is ridiculous. So
yeah,
I think it's now just a large enough sample that we can just say in these big spots that number's too long. So kind of a basic handicap, but I was kind of surprised that one's that long. So that is my favorite play.
especially on home ice, right? I mean, this is like the price we would have saw in games 1 and 2 in Dallas, roughly, right? And now we're seeing the same price on home ice. So yeah, I'm in full agreement with you there. I think Draisaitl, I mean, he's gone 2 games without a point after going 13 games with at least 1 point. And he's been money in these playoffs when it comes to scoring goals. So I do like that look for sure. Um, seems like you're not going to go more than a few games without Hyman shoveling in a puck one way or another. I think the
Yeah,
goal he scored in Game 3 was the most Zach Hyman goal of all time. He was pretty much standing in the net.
he's just a
So
rebounder. If you've ever seen those little rebounders you put on the ice, that's him. And the last note I'd kind of put out there on sides too, just talking about like looking at the last game. I do think just because the Stars ended up getting the go-ahead goal, people are kind of revisioning the third period a little bit because I really wanted the Stars to win. And it was
yeah.
super closely contested until they broke through. So you talk about how the Oilers
I had overtime at plus 310, and I felt kind of robbed on that one.
yeah, that's tough. Yeah, and I mean, Desharnais hit the post on a pretty legit scoring chance, like inner post. So I think it's like revisioning the third a bit. You say how the Oilers have been really good in tied game scripts. It felt like that one that everyone was really comparable, or
Yeah.
the teams were pretty close because it feels like the take from most people became that the Oilers played a really good first and then completely mailed it in. When it seems more like the actual take probably should have been both teams just completely controlled one period, and then the third kind of was a coin flip that the Stars ended up breaking through in. So
Yeah,
that
I
part,
mentioned it on
but
yesterday's show that Dallas only had 3 shots in the third period. Just unfortunately, 2 of them ended up becoming goals with the empty netter, and then of course, Jason Robertson scoring that hat trick goal on Stuart Skinner. But 3 shots is 3 shots, right? And
for sure.
the Oilers did
And
play a pretty good third period. Probably unfortunate that they didn't get at least a chance to go to overtime and win in sudden death.
yeah, and we've talked about it, I think, on your show, but online change a lot. If you pay attention to playoff games where goalies give up one goal that just completely shouldn't happen, it's almost a rule that teams don't overcome that. So and Skinner was pretty good, so it sucks to like just pick on him again. But because I that game winning goal from Robertson can't happen. I don't know if he was kind of cheating
It's
off
the
his phone.
RVH, right? And it's been a theme with Skinner, and
It
that's I
is. I
think
think it
what
was in his
really
head
burns people, right?
touch that it seemed like Robertson was probably going to sweat it to Hintz, and then he didn't. But
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's any excuse. You just can't let that leaky one through. So whatever. It's
Yeah.
just it's not like a great excuse, but in general, that's been a pretty firm rule. If you pay attention this postseason, I think any game where there's been like one goal that just should be like a 0% of the time goal, that team's happened to win. So yeah, unfortunately, it kind of sucks for Skinner because he was going pretty good in that game, but
Yeah, I
definitely
mean, I mentioned it yesterday on yesterday's show that I don't think you can really like lay the blame of the first 3 goals on Skinner. It was a total team breakdown. Terrible gap control by Darnell Nurse. Too much chaos in the offensive zone around Skinner, and I think at the end of the day, Edmonton just hasn't been able to create as much chaos and as much confusion around Dallas's net as the Stars have been able to do to the Oilers at times. So, Jake Ottinger's been really good, but man, I just for me, Miro Heiskanen still my Conn Smythe Trophy
oh,
pick.
I really hope so. That's my best possible position.
Yeah, I'm
Like,
not hopeful though.
I
I'm
mean,
not. I in a perfect world, yeah, he's gonna win it, but I'm really not hopeful. I
he
mean,
won't.
it's
He won't. If it's
yeah,
anything close to now, Ettinger's going to win in a landslide. I lost even more faith on the voting after that Coach of the Year debacle because I'm still just like, there's no nuance to the voting. There's just like one
no.
thought, and everyone's just going to be like, okay, well, look at these Ettinger stats, and like no one's going to dig into the fact that Dallas insulated him so well, and the idea that probably another pretty strong goaltender could have put up comparable stats, whereas I don't think hardly anyone could do what Heiskanen's done.
No.
But
7
anyways,
games. Yesterday was the first in 7 games or 8 games actually that he was on the ice for a goal against. And that's just an incredible considering the players that he's been playing against for the last 8 games, like the Avalanche and the Oilers, the two top offensive teams in the NHL this year. It's incredible. And I think that alone is, should propel him to the top. He's still sitting right there, 1 point behind Jason Robertson, who just, needed a hat trick to take that lead for the team points lead right now. But yeah, Haskinen has just been phenomenal, right? And it's unfortunate that he's almost certainly going to get edged out by Jake Ottinger if the Stars do go on to win the Stanley Cup. Ottinger was really good once again Robertson was really good once again in Game 3, 3 goals. He's got 6 goals and 16 points. But Rupe Hintz obviously was really effective in his return. I guess he had been skating the entire time, so he really did not look out of place in game number 3. He assisted on Robertson's first 2 goals, and he was really good on the penalty kill as well, helping the Stars kill off both of the Oilers' power plays. McDavid, he shot the puck a lot more in game number 4, 6 shots, 1 goal in game 3. He's got 2 goals and 2 assists so far in 3 games versus the Stars. Do you think that's going to continue to be a theme for McDavid? Do you think he's going to continue to try to take matters into his own hands here and try to score some goals more so than he has maybe in past series?
I still don't know. Like I played the under on his shot prop the last 2 games, so
Oh,
obviously
really?
took a loss last game. But I just feel like it's kind of he's pretty reliant on like almost finding these little breakdowns to shoot because he never takes borderline shots ever. And there just happened to be a few where he got a little deeper in last game with the puck, but that hasn't happened too commonly. So I don't know. I don't really think it's like a great bet to bet the over here. I always just like I think he's going to keep playing great. I think you can target him however you want. He was obviously awesome last game, but I don't know if shots is like the go-to. I just feel like there's so many we're going to end up frustrated when he just pulls up and tries to find a play because
Yeah.
he's so lenient towards just trying. Like I think he's aware that like a lot of those mid-range shots are pointless, and he's always got a better chance trying to find something that's going to lead to an actual goal. So I always feel like you're going to kind of be like a little bit dependent on him just happening to end up really close to the net with a good chance. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously last game
No,
he went.
I'm in agreement with you. I think he's shown all playoffs long, all season long, really, that he's a lot more inclined to pass the puck than he is to shoot it. And I think there's going to be games where he does get a few more looks. I think it's kind of unfortunate, really, because I think McDavid is. He might not have the most deceptive shot, but he's such a good skater. He's so good at kind of shifting his body in certain ways in a really fast way, that he can get off some, I think, tougher shots from the mid-range areas that maybe he's kind of not giving himself enough credit for being able to do that. Because I did see him, Ottinger did struggle to make some, pad saves and stuff on some of those shots, and I think McDavid could have fooled him on one more if he had a little bit of luck on his side. But the Stars, like you said earlier, they've been just so good as the road team. Doesn't seem to be any kind of advantage for the home team, and really makes sense, I guess, when you look at the Stars roster. How do you match up against that, right? How do you find an advantage matching up against such a deep roster, a team that can roll these lines like they have been? And they've scored 3.3 goals per game on the road in these playoffs. The Oilers have been obviously decent at home. They've got a 4-3 record. They've scored at least 3 goals in all 7 of their home games so far this postseason. So it's probably going to take a decent offensive performance from the Oilers to get past the Stars here in Game 4. So looking at over 6 at even money. I don't know if I love that look, but I certainly would expect it to get close. Just given how good Dallas has been on the road and how hard it is to shut down the Edmonton Oilers. You're not going to, at least not very often, hold the Oilers to 3 or fewer goals. So probably going to take 4 to beat Edmonton on most nights. And Dallas seems capable of doing that. So I'm going to look towards the Stars here for an anytime goal scorer. And I think I'm going to stick with somebody that's been lighting the lamp quite a bit, and that's Wyatt Johnson. Where are we
Okay.
at here?
Johnson, like it.
I did
Thought you
have him.
Sagan.
I did
Just
have
think
it up here, but now I am losing my place. Goal scorer. Um,
Yeah, I think the one thing too, like on the like it's good for Johnson that Hintz is back, I think, because now they're
yeah,
more of a matchup challenge. And the Hintz thing I think was really interesting because I felt like he was clearly fighting the puck in the first and he really settled in and got going. And supposedly the rumored injury is a hand injury, which I think would make sense because it looked like he was skating completely up to his normal par, which is why I think he's so effective, even if he can barely hold the stick.
for sure.
And it'll be interesting to see how he continues. It felt like he got the absolute most out of like very few touches and just like being really useful in the right areas and his ability to check so well. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's funny thinking about some of the comments from the first two games about like all the Oilers media calling out how the Stars' depth advantage was overrated and all this stuff and how the Oilers were hanging in pretty good. And it's like, okay, well, everyone's slotted pretty differently than usual when the Oilers or when the Stars don't have their best forward. So
Yeah,
definitely pretty almost a more notable change than I feel like. Like it feels like if it was roles reversed and the Oilers didn't have Hyman, we would have heard about it 700 times. And maybe that's just where me and you live, but it felt like it was like almost hardly commented on that the Stars were going without Hintz. So yeah, definitely a big change there if he can play at his top level.
yeah. And you mentioned that when we reviewed the series and just how it wasn't even really been being mentioned, just how big of a loss that this was for Dallas. And now that he's back, it's kind of being understated just how important he is to the lineup. So got a pretty exciting game tonight. I'm going to lock in a half unit bet on Wyatt Johnson to score an anytime goal at plus 170. Nick has a wager on Leon Draisaitl to light the lamp at plus 140, you said, right, Nick?
Yeah, that's the one.
Um,
I kind of like Sagan too. He's plus 350. I think if they're going to stick with that same unit, he's going to continue to get a lot of looks.
yeah, absolutely. He's been good the last little while. JB Ben's been pretty good too, which doesn't surprise me. He's a gamer, and this is an important time of year. We all remember that image of Ben sitting alone in the locker room following that Game 6 defeat by the Tampa Bay Lightning back in the 2020 Stanley Cup Final. And I'm sure he wants to get back there. So should be a great game tonight. As much as I'd like to see my Dallas Stars Cup futures get one step closer to the Stanley Cup Final. I'd like to see this series go a little bit longer. I'd like to see the Oilers get a little bit, get
It's
some
tough because
get
I need
some.
the West so bad. So I'm I'd be cheering for the West no matter what in the final. But I'm
Yeah,
also like, okay, well, I'd kind of prefer this doesn't go 7. It'd be nice to see I guess just the Stars get out unscathed. But from a fan perspective, I agree. Like this is such a good series.
for
Uh,
sure. Yeah, and the conference finals, both conference finals have been great. The Eastern
Great,
Conference Final
huge.
has been
Yeah,
super exciting, and we're being treated to some really good hockey here. But just before I let you go, Nick, do you have any thoughts on what we should expect heading into Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Final, which is now a best of 3 after Florida got the overtime win in game number 4?
yeah, I like the Panthers in Game 5. I thought that they opened a little short. It's not a ton of fun, but I mean, even handicapping for how amazing Shesterkin's going to play, and maybe for the fact that New York's power play is probably going to get going a little more. Although Florida's power play looked unreal in their chances to work yesterday, and obviously came up with a huge winner. I still think that this is a little short. The Panthers are another team that is over 2 straight postseasons shown to be better on the road. And even if we're not going to say they're better on the road, I don't think they're at all, intimidated to go in MSG. They went 1-1 there in the first 2 games of the series. And I think that in the Carolina series, New York kind of had that right rhythm of they had the puck less, but I think if you boiled it down, you could see that Carolina's chances weren't actually that great. And the
Yeah.
expected goals reflected that it was pretty comparable. I've thought the last 2 games, the Rangers are like obviously lucky to even get out of there 1-1. I think last night's game, even getting to overtime, was insane. There were so many full-blown breakdowns. And a couple of the ones that I think wouldn't even be reflected in the data at all was there's a 2-on-1 clean pass, Barkov botched catching it, would have been goal, like super high percentage of time. Breakaway, Barkov bubbles the puck. Like there's so many that I think were just complete breakdowns. And as someone who bet on the Panthers and wants them to win the series, there's so many chances last night where I thought it could actually be a goal. Like my eyes were lighting up, being like, okay, this could be it. Like I really think through the second 2 periods of that game were probably even worse than people are saying. Like it feels like one of those things you always get so much credit for having a goalie, but I think if you broke it down, you could see there was a lot where it's just really all that went right was the puck didn't go in New York's net. So I feel like at this point, they're having a really hard time managing Florida's forecheck. It feels like Fox is supposedly he's injured. He looked pretty horrible last night.
Yeah.
And
It's going to be
overall,
interesting to find out what kind of injuries he's playing through, because I think it might be a pretty tough one.
yeah, and I mean, like I feel like some of the Rangers forwards aren't getting it as bad as they would have just because Shesterkin's made some saves, because they're getting caved in and just completely outplayed. Like Barkov, Kachuk, Reinhart, all these guys are just dominating relative to what Panarin, Kreider, Mika, any of the Rangers guys are doing. And I just don't really think it's going to change at this point. I think it's going to be so, yeah, like I get that the Rangers have their arguments with, the goaltending and the power play and being opportunistic, but I still think that this price is a little short, just given the overall way that I think Florida is going to continue to dominate. So, if this game looks anything like games 3 and 4, I'll take my chances at minus 120. So, yeah, I do think that there's value backing the Panthers in game 5.
All right, man. Well, thanks for joining the show today. You have a great rest of your day, and good luck with your bets tonight.
Yes, you as well. Enjoy the game. Thanks for having me.
For sure, I will. Take care, everybody. I'll see you on Thursday.